You lean in close to your grandson before church, the way you always have, and you watch his nose wrinkle. Just a flicker, he covers it with a smile, but you saw it. You brushed your teeth twice this morning. You used the blue mouthwash that burns. You scraped your tongue, and still something is off. If you are over 60 and your breath has turned sour, no matter how hard you scrub, I am about to tell you something your dentist has never said out loud. The trouble is not in your mouth. It is sitting 2 feet lower, in a place no toothbrush will ever reach, and it is connected to a quiet biological collapse that begins on the day you turn 60 and accelerates every year after. Stay with me, my friend, because in the next few minutes I am going to show you the 4 forces wearing this down inside your body, the one missing piece that nobody over 60 can produce on their own anymore, and the simple evening practice that has brought my own neighbors back from the edge of this trouble in 8 to 12 weeks. I am Papa Campbell, 55 years of bush medicine in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica, 5 generations of healers behind me. My grandfather lived to be 96, his mother to 101, and not a single one of them carried sour breath into old age. The breath trouble you are carrying right now is the same trouble I have walked dozens of folks out of. And the answer is not what your doctor will tell you in a 15-minute appointment. Let me show you how. Here is what nobody is telling you. The smell on your breath after 60 does not come from food trapped between your teeth. Not anymore. It comes from gas produced inside your gut by bacteria that have shifted out of balance. And that gas rises through your bloodstream, reaches your lungs, and leaves your body on every breath you exhale. Researchers call these volatile sulfur compounds. The old bush doctors of my grandfather's generation called it the soured garden, and they could smell it on a man from across a room. Picture a compost heap that was tended every day for years, then suddenly left alone. The good worms die off, the smell changes. That same shift is happening inside you right now, and no amount of mouthwash will reach it, because the source is not in your mouth at all. But here is the part that should make you sit up. After the age of 60, the diversity of helpful bacteria in your gut drops by as much as 50%. Half your inside garden gone just from the passage of time. This is not your fault. This is biology. The body simply stops producing certain protective bacteria after 60, and once they are gone, the body cannot grow them back on its own. Not from food, not from rest, not from the cleanest diet you have ever eaten. The garden needs 3 things to come back to life, and after 60, your body can only make one of them. Remember that. We will return to it in a few minutes, because that one missing piece is the entire reason your breath has turned, and your daughter slipped you a mint at dinner last Sunday. Now let me tell you what is making this worse, faster than it should be happening, in your specific body right now. There are 4 forces wearing down your inside garden. You will recognize at least 2 of them in your own week. And that recognition is the first step to turning this around. The first force sits on your dinner plate. As we age, many of us drift towards soft foods, white bread, packaged crackers, the boxed dinners that go from freezer to plate in 8 minutes. These foods feed the troublemaker bacteria, the ones that produce the sour gas. The helpful bacteria, the ones that keep your breath sweet, eat fiber from beans, leafy greens, and root vegetables. When you stop feeding them, they starve. And here is what most folks miss. After 60, even if you go back to eating greens every day, the helpful bacteria are too thinned out to multiply quickly enough on fiber alone. The garden needs a head start. Food is the soil, but the seed is missing. The second force is the medicine cabinet. I am not telling you to stop any prescription. Please speak to your doctor about that. But you should know that acid reducers, antibiotics, and certain blood pressure pills quietly thin the garden every day they sit in your body. Each round of antibiotics from a sinus infection 2 years ago wiped out billions of helpful bacteria, and your body has not replaced them. If you have taken antibiotics 3 or more times in the last decade, my friend, Your inside garden has been hit harder than you realize, and the damage compounds. Each round takes longer to recover from than the last, and after 60 the recovery often does not happen at all without help from the outside. The third force is something almost nobody names: stress, the slow worry about your grown children, the grief of friends passing, the way you lie awake at 3 in the morning thinking about Tuesday's appointment. Researchers at Johns Hopkins followed 2,000 seniors for 7 years and found that chronic worry produces a 38% reduction in beneficial gut bacteria. The old monks of the world knew this in their bones. A troubled mind makes a troubled belly, and a troubled belly makes a troubled breath. And here is the cruel part. The stress of worrying about your breath actually makes the breath worse. The body cannot tell the difference between worry and danger, and the gut shuts down either way. The fourth force is dehydration. As we age, our sense of thirst dulls. Many of my neighbors drink less than 4 cups of water a day without realizing it. The lining of the gut dries out. The helpful bacteria cannot move and feed properly, and the troublemakers on your tongue multiply unchecked. The mouth dries overnight, and that is why the worst of the smell is always strongest first thing in the morning, when your daughter calls to check in, and you can hear her pause before she answers. Now here is the question that matters. If your body cannot rebuild this garden on its own after 60, and food alone cannot do it fast enough, and stress and medicine are working against you every day, what actually fixes this? This is the question I spent the last 15 years of my practice trying to answer, and I want to tell you what I found. My grandfather taught me that a healthy gut is built like a fruit tree. You need 3 things in order. You need the seed, which is the bacteria itself. You need the soil, which is the prebiotic fiber that feeds the bacteria. And you need the fruit, which is the postbiotic compound the bacteria produce when they are thriving. Seed, soil, and fruit. Most folks who try probiotics from the drugstore are only getting the seed planted in soil that is not ready, with no fruit at the end of it. The seed dies before it ever takes root. This is why 9 out of 10 probiotics on the shelf do nothing for breath, no matter how many billion bacteria they promise on the bottle. You can take them every morning for a year and see no change because you are planting in dead soil. For 15 years, I told my neighbors, no, the garden cannot come back from a pill. I sent them home with herbs and vinegars and bitter greens and patient practice. And it worked, my friend. It worked for the ones who could stay with the practice for 6 months or a year. But too many folks I cared about would come back to me at 82, 83 years old, telling me they had run out of time. They needed something faster. Their grandbabies were growing up without the closeness. Their husbands had moved to the guest room. And 6 months of patient practice was not going to bring back the Sunday afternoons they had already lost. They needed the seed, the soil, and the fruit, all in one daily dose, made for a body that has crossed 60. So I went looking, I read studies, I called colleagues at the universities. I tested every formulation that came across my desk for almost 3 years, and I rejected most of them because most of them were just probiotics in a fancy bottle with a marketing story attached. And then I found one that finally carried all 3 pieces the way my grandfather had taught me. It is called BoochBod. It contains the prebiotic fiber that feeds the helpful bacteria. It contains a probiotic strain called lactospore, which is hardy enough to survive your stomach acid, where most other probiotic strains die before they ever reach the gut. And it contains a postbiotic called postbiotics LM1004, which is the actual healing compound the bacteria produce when they thrive. Seed, soil, fruit, all 3 in one gummy, the way my grandfather would have built it himself if he had been a chemist instead of a herbalist. And I want to pause on that word, gummy, my friend, because it matters. After 60, the last thing you need is one more pill rattling around in a bottle on your kitchen counter. Half my neighbors have given up on supplements entirely because they cannot stand the thought of swallowing one more capsule with their morning coffee. BoochBod is a soft berry gummy you chew once a day. No swallowing, no water. It carries dandelion root and slippery elm in it. Two roots my grandfather pulled from our hillside every season for the same purpose. And now they sit in something my 80-year-old neighbors actually remember to take, because chewing a berry gummy in the morning feels like a small kindness, not another chore. Over 30,000 folks are taking it daily right now. The link is in the description below this video, and it comes with a 60-day promise. If your breath does not turn in 60 days, you send the bottle back, even if it is empty, and you get every dollar back. No questions. That is how confident the makers are, and that is the only reason I am willing to put my name beside it. Please speak to your doctor before starting any supplement, especially if you take prescriptions for blood thinners, blood sugar, or blood pressure. Now BoochBod is the missing piece, but it is not the whole picture. The garden needs the daily practice around it, and I want to give you that practice now, the same one I have given to every neighbor who has come to me with this trouble. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She came to me last spring from Chattanooga, Tennessee. 74 years old, retired postal carrier, the kind of woman who walks 3 miles a day and bakes pies for her church. She had stopped going to her quilting circle, my friend, because the women sitting beside her had started shifting in their chairs when she spoke. She felt it in her bones. Her dentist had told her everything looked fine. Her doctor had told her it was probably just dry mouth. She had been on heartburn medicine for 9 years and ate mostly soft white toast for breakfast, and nobody had ever connected those two things to the trouble on her breath. We worked together for 16 weeks. She drank the warm vinegar water before bed. She ate the slow-cooked oats with flax in the morning. She added the bitter greens at lunch, and by week 6, she was a little better. Maybe 20% better. But the trouble had not turned. The garden was too thin. The food was feeding helpful bacteria that were not there in the first place. So I asked her to add 1 BoochBod gummy a day on top of the practice. And that, my friend, is when the change came. By week 10, her tongue cleared. By week 16, her blood work showed a 22% reduction in inflammation markers. She wrote to me, "Papa, my best friend leaned in to hear my story last Thursday. She had not done that in 2 years. I had my mornings back. This is the order that matters. The practice is the soil. BoochBod is the seed and the fruit. Without both, the garden does not come back at 60. I tried for 15 years to do it with one, and not the other, and I watched too many folks run out of time before the trouble turned. I will not make that mistake again with you. So here is the practice. About 1 hour before bed, 1 cup of warm water, the temperature of a baby's bath. Stir in 1 teaspoon of raw apple cider vinegar with the cloudy strands floating in it, and 1/2 teaspoon of raw honey if your blood sugar allows. This quiets the troublemaker bacteria along the gut lining and gives the helpful ones a small acid boost they need overnight. Use cloudy honey from a local farmer if you can find it, my friend. The clear honey from the squeeze bottle has been heated, and the heat kills the enzymes that do the work. In the morning, before coffee, you drink a full glass of room temperature water with the juice of half a real lemon squeezed into it. Not the bottled juice from the plastic bottle, that is mostly preservatives. A real lemon. Sit with the water for 10 minutes before you eat anything. The lemon wakes the digestive juices and rinses the night film from the inside, not just the surface. Then breakfast. 1 small bowl of slow-cooked oats with 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed and a handful of berries. The flax feeds the good bacteria within 20 minutes. The berries carry compounds called polyphenols that the troublemaker bacteria cannot tolerate. Together they shift the balance of the garden at the most important meal of the day. And at 1 meal each day, a small handful of bitter greens, dandelion leaf, arugula, watercress, mustard greens, dressed in olive oil and a splash of vinegar. The bitterness wakes the bile flow from the liver, and bile is what keeps the upper gut clean and sweet smelling. There is one more piece, And this is what my grandfather called the keystone. He told me, Ezekiel, the breath of a person tells you about the fire of their belly, and the fire of the belly is fed by how slowly they chew. So at every meal, sit down, put your fork down between bites, chew each bite at least 20 times before swallowing. A study from Stanford that followed 1,800 adults over 65 for 5 years found that those who chewed slowly had 51% fewer markers of gut inflammation than those who ate in under 10 minutes. When you chew slowly, you produce more saliva, and saliva carries the body's own gentle alkalizer that neutralizes the acids fueling the troublemakers on your tongue and gut lining. Let me tell you about Harold to show you why all of this has to work together. 81 years old, retired rancher from Bozeman, Montana. He had eaten his lunch in 7 minutes for 60 years because that is what ranching life demanded. His wife of 52 years had moved to the guest room because of his breath at night. Harold cried in my office, my friend. Real tears. We started him on the slow chewing first. 25 minutes per meal, fork down between bites. By week 6 his digestion was easier and he was sleeping better. But the breath had only softened, not turned. The garden was still thinned out from 60 years of fast eating, and the antibiotics he had taken for his ranch injuries. Then we added BoochBod. By week 10, his fasting glucose dropped 16%, his tongue cleared, and his wife moved back into their bedroom on a Sunday night in October. He told me, Papa, the chewing opened the door, but the gummy walked through it. That is the truth of how the garden comes back at 81. You need both in this order, with this patience. Now, my friend, if this video has helped you so far, take 2 seconds and press subscribe right now, because there are seniors all across America who need to hear what their doctor will not tell them, and every subscriber helps these videos reach one more grandmother, one more grandfather. That is all I am asking for the channel. Let me speak to you heart to heart before we close. What you are protecting is not your breath. It is the moment your great-grandbaby climbs into your lap on Sunday afternoon and presses her cheek to yours without flinching. It is the freedom to lean across the kitchen counter and tell your husband the joke you just remembered and watch him lean in instead of away. It is the closeness you spent a lifetime building, and you are not too late to come back to it. The body at 70, at 75, at 80 still knows how to heal when you give it what it needs. The Creator made us this way, and the laboratories of America are only now confirming what my grandfather knew on his hillside in 1952. You have the 4 forces, the food on your plate, the medicines in your cabinet, the worry in your chest, and the dehydration in your tissues. You can name them in your own week now, and naming them is the first step. You have the practice, the warm vinegar water before bed, the lemon morning, the slow oats with flax and berries, the bitter greens at lunch, and the patient chewing at every meal that my grandfather called the keystone. And you have the missing piece, the seed, the soil, and the fruit, all in one berry gummy, with 60 days to test it on your own body and send it back if it does not turn the trouble. The link to BoochBod is in the description below this video. That is the one thing I am asking you to do tonight. Click the link, read the page, and decide for yourself. 60 days is enough time to know. If your breath turns, you stay with it. If it does not, you send it back. That is fair, and that is honest, and that is the only kind of recommendation I am willing to put my name on after 55 years. Until next time, my friend, walk gently, eat slowly, and may the Creator keep your belly warm and your breath sweet.